Good morning, Brutal Planet listeners. This is Joey here. Demon Hunter has been releasing incredible music for about 2 decades now. Their new album, Songs of Death and Resurrection, was just released a couple weeks ago. And I have the privilege of interviewing the lead vocalist, Ryan Clark here. Ryan, thank you for coming on and talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to tell you a story. Back in, I think it was 1996, 97, something like that. I was at a church camp and a guy introduced me to this band called 6 Feet Deep.
Yeah.
I had never heard them before. And it just blew my mind that music could be that heavy. And it was shortly after that I started looking around and I found this. And this was actually the first album that got me like really into heavy music. And I was just wondering if we could start out. Do you have any old Focal Point story that you could tell a fan like me?
Man, you know, it's funny. I've been in the throes of working on a book of album art designs for my brother and I over the past few months. And so I've been going down memory lane and kind of thinking and writing about when all of that stuff went down. It was just such a whirlwind back then, but I had to jog my memory recently about all that stuff. I'm pretty bad about remembering.
Yeah.
Especially that far back. But I was surprised kind of how much came back when I really dwelled on it for a while. Yeah, I mean, I signed the contract when I was 16 years old, or my parents had to do it for me because, you know, 4 out of 5 of us were under 18 when we signed.
Wow. And
then we just, you know, immediately after graduating high school, went out on the road, did a summer tour. Back then, you know, there were no cell phones. We had, you know, phone cards and stuff like that. You would just book it like 3 months ahead of time and then hope that the show was still going on when you got there, you know?
Yeah.
There were no like major load in times or anything like that. You know, it was just like super loose and DIY, but it was awesome. I mean, it's thinking back about that stuff, like nothing will ever top the first time that you get an offer from a label, or first time you hear yourself on the radio, the first time that you know, get your first CD, you know, like the physical product back, first time you enter a real studio. I mean, it was all of those things were like first right around then. That would have been like 1995 or 96.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was wild because I started playing guitar when I was 14. 2 years later, I was like in a signed band and touring. So It just happened super fast.
Yeah, a lot of these albums, I don't listen to the ones from way back, but Focal Point is always one that's kind of been a regular in my car, and
that's awesome.
CD has lasted all these years, so.
That's great, man. Thanks.
Yeah. So Songs of Death and Resurrection, this is your 11th album. Where did the idea kind of come from to do something so different like this?
It's something we've sort of dabbled with the idea of for kind of a long time, really. I mean, when we started amassing a collection of these ballads, you know, by the time we had done 4 or 5 records, you know, we had 12 or 13 of these songs. And it was clear at that point that they had started becoming fan favorites. Those are the songs that people would request most before we had like the statistics of streaming, you know, songs playing the most and stuff like that. It was just kind of gauged by what people wanted to hear the most and what people commented on the most. And it was always songs like Carry Me Down and Heartstrings. And so it was pretty obvious to us that those ones really resonated with people in like a different way than the overall package does. You know, people are still torn, you know, on whether or not they like the heavy stuff the most or the melodic ballad stuff, but the data would tell us that people far favor the ballad stuff. So obviously with War and Peace, our last 2 full lengths, it was like, let's explore those 2 sides as much as we can.
Yeah.
Really polarize them and separate them. And then doing something like this, it was a matter of time. And I feel like after wrapping up 10 studio records, it just felt like a good time for like a collection of sorts.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for something like this to feel like too soon. And I also just wanted to make sure that we had so many of these songs that we could really pick and choose and be selective with them. So these songs are kind of a handful of them are songs that we've played many times before, whether heavy, or some stripped down acoustic version of. And then there's a few that we've never played live. There's obviously a new song on there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of play with the flow of things. I didn't want to do too much to the songs. I wanted them to stay, retain their essence, because I know that people are really invested in these songs in the way that they were originally. So I didn't want to mess with that too much, but I also didn't want to give people something that they feel like they've heard before, right, whether it was live or through an acoustic thing. So yeah, that was sort of the playing field that we built for ourselves, is how do we do both at the same time, create something new and fresh, but also not mess with the right, formula. So most of that was about tempo, layering, strings, piano. Obviously the piano is a through line through the whole record, that really fills it out and is something different that we've never done.
Yeah, that was my next question, because to my understanding, was it Patrick that taught himself the piano to do the songs live? And then on the album here, you got a professional pianist, and I was just wondering, who is it, and where did you come across that? And
yeah, for the couple songs that we did live, Patrick did teach himself. He's a very dynamic musician, so it's not a surprise that he was able to tackle that for the live shows. For this though, we needed to get like the full vibe of a professional pianist. Mm-hmm. And Jeremiah's wife's family is all very musical. As a matter of fact, you're wearing a Waylon hoodie. Jeremiah's mother-in-law and father-in-law were in Waylon's band.
Oh wow!
For a long time. And so their three daughters were in a country group for a number of years. And the youngest daughter is an incredible pianist. Her name's Joanna. And so it's Jeremiah's sister-in-law.
Okay.
And she's just phenomenal. We gave her the songs that we were going to do for the record. And by the time we entered the studio in Atlanta in June, she knew them better than any of us, like hands down, so it's just working with someone of that caliber it makes it fun. But it's just kind of funny because guys that don't play very often together, we always have to like sit and hash things out. And sitting down with someone that's professional enough to just be like there and ready, right, and front to back. We felt really spoiled. And I think the songs, the benefit that the songs underwent by virtue of the piano was like gave a totally new, fresh dynamic to them, and something kind of breathed new life into them.
Arrangements. Did she come up with the arrangements herself, or did you guys compose that for her?
With just the general you said the arrangements?
Yeah, did you have to write out the notes for her to just play, or did she come up? She got the song and wrote up the arrangement.
Yeah, she came up with all of it. I mean, and she would, again, she's of the caliber where we can sit and she'll be like, okay, I was thinking this. And then she'd play something and then she'd be like, or I could do it like this, or I could do it like this. She already, not only did she know the songs front to back, but she could play them 3-4 different ways. And so again, just talk about being spoiled, we're just like that one, but yeah, she just, a song like Praise the Void, which is a new song, we gave her the demo to that song, which is, the demo is actually more upbeat. It's kind of like, okay, like Peace or More Than Bones. So for this, we stripped it way down to just piano and vocal, but we'd never played that one live at all. She was working from a very raw track, and she just completely transformed the song in a really awesome way. So that was really cool.
It was cool. I swear your you got an eye on my notes or something, because my next question was about Praise the Void. So
Oh, yeah.
where did the inspiration from that come from? Maybe lyrical content, things like that. What can you tell us about Praise the Void?
Yeah, so I mean, we don't really ever stop writing music, when we're done with a record, we just keep going. Patrick and I especially just keep going. And by the time a record is released to the public, we're probably 10, 12, if not more demos deep for another record. It's been like that for the last 3 or 4.
Wow.
So we're just, it's our favorite part is coming up with new music. So it's hard to shut that component off. And when the ideas are flowing, you got to take advantage of it. So we've been amassing demos for the next release for a while now. When it came time to do this record, I knew I wanted to do a new cut and basically sort of reverse engineer it in a way that, show the stripped down version before we even show the real version of it. Praise the Void was the one that I liked the most out of the batch that I have that would be pertinent for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was going to make the cut of final songs for the next record. And I was really proud of it from a lyrical perspective. And just from the song overall, I was really stoked on it. So I knew that one would be a good candidate. Lyrically, Praise the Void is essentially saying, we're in an era now, an age where a lot of people are talking about, you hear a lot of conversations, whether it's through podcasts or whatever, about life after death and what people's views are on that. And a lot of people have sort of taken this idea of the nothingness after death, if that's what you believe, as sort of a kind of positioning it in a way where they say it gives them a comfort. And that the concept of that was just interesting to me and nonsensical to me. That's sort of where my worldview comes into play, is that it's all about hope and the fact that this life is not all that there is, and et cetera. And hearing someone say that they take comfort in the nothingness of the abyss after life or whatever is just kind of a silly concept to me. So in essence, the song is sort of a sarcastic worship song to the nothingness, to the absence of God. So a lot of my lyrics, especially on songs like this, a lot of the lyrics tend to be sort of sarcastic, taking an angle that I either disagree with or I think is foolish or want to poke holes in. Sure. And I'll sort of speak sarcastically from that side. And then oftentimes I'll sort of answer that in like the chorus section. I'll sort of flip the from like, third person to first person or whatever. And so this song is like a very good example of sort of dwelling in that sarcastic area throughout most of the song. It's, the chorus lyrics are, we found nothing is enough. And so that's kind of, again, taken literally. We found that the nothingness is enough. Talks about, how all of the things in life, your kids, love, all those things, if it's just a darkness, endless void at the end of life, like what's it all for, kind of a thing. So that's what the void is, and the idea that being thankful for that void is just kind of a ridiculous notion.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not unlike many of the Psalms that are very polemic in nature and just kind of a taunt to some of the maybe people that don't believe in God and things like that. So interesting style of writing. That's cool. Loneliness. I was telling you about focal point before. My mom hated my music growing up, and somehow you got your mom to sing on a Demon Hunter song.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Like, why mom?
Well, she sang when I was growing up, and she would sing around the house all the time. She sang at church. She has a great voice. She would always find the harmonies if we were listening to something at home. And so that was a subconscious thing for me as I got older, is just finding a harmony with ease. And that's just from being around her. Picking up on those sorts of things just kind of came naturally to me. So, I mean, she was definitely a major inspiration with singing. And we just, growing up, had sort of a musical family. My dad played guitar, my mom sang. And so those were sort of the catalysts for me wanting to get into music. Obviously, it took a different path than the stuff that they were listening to and playing growing up. But my parents, when it was early days in Focal Point and Training for Utopia, I feel like it was still a bit too foreign for them.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're going on almost 30 years of
Right.
both me and for a long time, my brother having played that music. So nothing is shocking to them anymore. They're super, super supportive. They come to, if they're close enough, they'll come to every show. They love the guys in the band. They couldn't be any more supportive. So
That's cool.
That the idea of them, having an issue with it or not understanding it is long,
Sure.
long since past. And my mom recently mentioned that she liked a song if I ever, had a song for her. And so I mentioned to her that we were doing this record. I thought that it would be better to do her on this record because she was familiar with the song.
Are you there, Ryan? It looked like we froze up here.
Go.
Oh, there we go. We froze up there for a little bit, but
No worries.
I was also going to ask you, your voice, when I've listened to this album, I don't know how many times now, and I'm just blown away. I've always known you to be a good singer, but I guess I never realized to what extent until I heard it stripped down into piano and strings like this. How do you keep your voice so healthy? And, what was it like recording stripped down, to where you have to use falsetto or things like that versus a normal Demon Hunter album?
I mean, it's a lot easier. The strain that my voice undergoes when we're doing a normal record is pretty brutal because it's not a muscle that I use all the time.
You must have really only kids like me then.
Yeah, I only exercise it when we're doing an album or when we're on tour.
Yeah.
And so, when we're starting an album, there's a good chance I haven't sang or screamed in months,
Right.
And so I have to basically work myself into it, and my voice will kind of get really hoarse and sore for a while. I still struggle with knowing the right way to use my voice. But when it comes to singing, especially like really melodic, soft singing like this record has, that's really refreshing for me because it means a lot less strain. I can focus on the parts themselves and on the performance and not really have to worry about whether or not I'm going to lose my voice or whether or not it's going to strain over time. When we did these songs, I did them 3-4 times each in the studio, and then did the harmonies and everything. And that was nothing. Like there was no strain on my voice whatsoever. And then when we played we did the live stream, again, rehearsing, I play them 3-4 times each. And that stacks up to about 50 songs in a day. And comparatively though, it was cake just because of the way that we're performing these songs. So I like being able to show that sort of range. It's definitely something that's easier for me when I can find that, when I don't have to feel like I have to really kind of blast over the music,
Right.
compete with the heaviness of the music. That can be another thing vocally, is if you're singing too kind of quiet and calm and the music's really heavy, it just doesn't mesh very well. So this allowed me to kind of sit back into the pocket and just kind of vibe it.
Yeah.
And it was much easier that way. And I feel like the performance, when I'm really in the pocket of, you know, a key that feels really good to me, when I can find all the notes and I don't have to strain, I think it's just going to be a better performance all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I've always known you to be a good singer. You can hear it on any Demon Hunter album, but this one was just like, wow, it seems very natural to you. You know, just your control of your voice, whether you're high or low, it was really phenomenal to hear that.
Another big part of that is just how many times we've done these songs.
Sure.
You know, when we're entering the studio and doing brand new songs, it's like we're still sort of formulating, we're still tweaking, we're still thinking about how the part could be. I mean, there have been choruses and verses and things that have completely transformed in the studio. And so I'm singing something for the first time, you know.
Sure.
With this, you know, 9 or 10 of these songs I've sang hundreds of times before. So understanding them fully enough to not even have to think about the lyrics and just focus on performance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first time we've had the opportunity to do that as well.
That's really cool. I wanted to ask you too about the cover art. I noticed right away who the artist was.
Oh, cool.
Elaran is one of my favorite artists. But and correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, you've designed every Demon Hunter album cover, haven't you, yourself? And then now this one, it seemed like it was maybe a collaboration or a handing over. And I was just curious about that.
Most of them are actually someone else. The only ones that I've designed myself cover-wise, I've always done the artwork surrounding the cover image.
Okay.
But the only covers that I've actually designed myself were Storm the Gates and Extremist.
Oh, okay.
The first two were Chris McCadden, who was in the band for a while. And then the triptych was Dan Seagrave. Dan also did the covers for The World is a Thorn. And then Justin Kammerer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Justin Kammerer did True Defiance. And then a bunch of different people did work for Outlive. I hired like 3 or 4 different artists to do those, whether it was like the internet version or the, you know, well, I guess the Pledge Music version versus the regular release and all that. And then War and Peace was actually a fan, a guy who's been bringing us sculptures for years.
Oh, wow.
And he works at a video game company, but he does digital sculpting as well. So initially we thought that those covers would be actual physical sculptures, but obviously there's a lot more freedom in doing it digitally, and you can kind of edit.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing them digitally. They look really real, but he sent me the raw files, and then I sat with another friend, buddy of mine named Andy, and we sat there and if it was basically just like, it looked like primer gray, and we would turn the face silver or turn it white or turn whatever, and then light it do different lighting scenarios in 3D space. And so that part of it was me and another friend. So all the album covers are pretty heavily art directed by me.
Okay.
In that I tell them exactly kind of what I want, and any sort of little things to hide in the scenario, or like, sometimes colors and things like that. Other times I'll leave it a little bit more open. The biggest things for me when giving direction to someone is just the overall, like the nuance of shape that's in this skull. Some people, they'll do the horns just in like that without like bringing them back to kind of coming out. Okay. A lot of people will do them sort of like evenly spaced and height wise. there's like little nuances that I think are important to the overall silhouette that
Sure.
I think need to be I need to be redundant about. But other than that, I try to give a lot of freedom. If I'm going to hire someone that I like their work, you know, I want to give them enough freedom to do their thing. I know how that is as a designer as well. It's just,
Yeah, I just assumed as a designer that you probably had your hand heavily in all the Demon Hunter album covers. So I didn't realize it was, you know, every.
yeah, it's my opportunity to sort of play art director instead of designer. You know,
Sure.
I do it so often for other bands, and it's nice to basically hire someone that can do something I can't. And in a, you know, with someone like Elleran or with Dan Seagrave, it's like, that's so far out of my wheelhouse. It gives me the opportunity to you know, hire someone that I look up to, and see how they would sort of portray the, you know, the
Yeah,
Demon
Elleran's
Soul
just got that style. It's when you see one of his, you know it's his, you know, and it's, it was
yeah.
really cool to see that.
Totally. I was very stoked with what he gave us. You know, I was kind of shooting for the stars when I gave him the direction. I was thinking, you know, like he does this great sort of Renaissance-y looking traditional painting kind of thing. And I was like, it'd be cool if it was, you know, had this and this and this and this. It's definitely has the most scene happening in a Demon Hunter cover. You know, most of them are really like the skull is the thing, and everything else is just kind of falls into the background. Whereas this one, it's like the angel and death are kind of like just as prominent as the head itself. And you have all this symbolism kind of throughout it. It was really fun to sort of put a list together of things that I'd like to see in it, and he didn't balk at any of them at all. He was just like, cool.
Well, it's a perfect album to kind of do something a little different for the cover as well. Because
exactly, I think the idea of using the demon skull as an instrument would be sort of cheesy on any other record. I think with this one being, you know, acoustic, there's something just kind of like antiquated and antique and cool about acoustic instruments. So that sort of allowed it to live in that world, in that sort of Renaissance world, because there were like, you know, similar instruments at the time, wacky instruments like a hurdy-gurdy, or, you know, there's all kinds of old like antiquated instruments that sort of have that kind of weird, obviously a lot of stringed instruments and things. So it felt like it could live in that world. Whereas if we were doing it for a heavy record, I think it might come off a little more corny.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome cover art. Favorite songs on this album? Do you have any that you kind of favor this version over the originals that you've done, or?
Yeah, you know, it definitely, like I said, hearing them in this style really breathed new life into them and sort of gave me a newfound sense of pride in them, because, you know, like I said, we've been playing them so much. It sort of becomes just, I don't know, the luster of hearing it for the first time sort of wanes. And when you get to refresh something in a new way, it makes you listen to it almost for the first time. And I you know, a lot of these songs I wrote 10, 12 or more years ago. My Throat is an Open Grave I wrote, I think, probably 22 years ago. So hearing a song like that and being like, this is actually a good song. Like, I think I did well on this that long after was really cool. And hearing, you know, like Dead Flowers was always a favorite, but I love how robust that one sounds now. Just how lush it is with the strings and with all the layered vocals. In the end, you have the nice bagpipes and stuff. And that one came out really good. Loneliness, I really like as well. For it being a new song, you know, I haven't heard it to death, but also when we started playing that one live during our Evening With set, when we were doing the acoustic version of Loneliness, we night after night sort of slowed it down a little bit more and a little bit more, and it got more and more kind of eerie, kind of got more vibe the slower that we went. And so when it came time to do it in the studio, we definitely wanted to keep it really as slow as we possibly could without it sort of falling apart. And so I really like how haunting that song is now. I feel like that one feels like maybe a truer sense of the song. I really liked doing I Am a Stone, because again, that song originally is just strings and vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So we almost, that's another reverse engineering, because most of them sort of simplified and slowed down. This one, it was like, okay, how can we add, the biggest hurdle was how can we add a percussive element to it, because the original song doesn't have one. So what's the time signature, and we did a few versions of this. We did some that were halftime. We did some that were super slow. And then the one that ended up on the record is actually a little bit more upbeat. So it's kind of cool to take some of the songs that were a little more somber to begin with,
Yeah,
and then make those ones a little bit more upbeat. And it gives the album range too. Like it's all ballads. So I wanted to ensure that there were songs that were like all the way stripped down, like Praise the Void, and then something like I Am a Stone and Heart of a Graveyard could be sort of the more energetic tunes. And I really like how both of those ones came out, because for songs like this, I really sort of err on the somber, bleak side, because I think that adds vibe to them.
mm-hmm.
And I always worry that if I'm going to speed them up or sort of make them more energetic, it might sort of strip some of that away from them. But in the case of those two songs, I feel like they really benefited from it.
Yeah. I typically listen to, mostly heavy music, but this has been playing in my player for a few weeks now, nonstop. And it's probably my favorite Demon Hunter album overall. I mean, that's
awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoy this one. So,
that's great. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was the hope, that people who like the songs to begin with would like them, just as much or even more. So
yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So last question for you. Any Demon Hunter news? I know you said you guys are normally, 10 demos deep or whatever. Knives news, anything?
Nothing on the Knives front. I mean, we've always had some stuff that we're working on sort of in the background, but it's real hard for us to get together. And Randy's a very busy dude, maybe even busier than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a tough one. I think we will eventually start chipping away at something, but I've been in Demon Hunter world for the last couple of years pretty consistently. So yeah. I need a little break in order to really focus on something like that. In terms of Demon Hunter, yeah, we're actively working towards something. It's a little too early to say exactly what that is, but I sort of left a little Easter egg in the booklet of the deluxe box for Songs of Death and Resurrection on Praise the Void. At the bottom of every page, it says what album it's from. And on Praise the Void, it says from the forthcoming album, Exile. So it won't be long before everyone starts noticing that Exile is going to be the next record. So yeah, getting started, sort of early stages on working on that, but it's pretty well underway in terms of the music itself.
Awesome. It's great. Well, there you go, Brutal Planet listeners. Songs of Death and Resurrection's out now. It's an incredible album. If you haven't picked up on that yet, check it out. Check out Demon Hunter's store. You guys got a lot of new merch, it looks like.
Yep.
Go support the band. Ryan, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Thanks, man.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.